We are just an hour now away from finding out who is the year's Nobel Peace Prize winner. The Nobel Committee had a record 278 nominations this year to consider. The Peace Research Institute of Oslo has compiled its annual shortlist, and at the top is Pope Francis. Second is Edward Snowden, the former NSA employee turned whistleblower. And number 3 is Malala Yousafzai, the teenager from Pakistan who became a global symbol after she stood up to the Taliban. Now, rounding out the top 5 favorites for the prize, Novaya Gazeta, an investigative newspaper in Russia, and Denis Mukwege, a Congolese doctor and a leading figure in the fight against sexual violence. Now, nearly 50 of the nominees this year are organizations, and last year, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons was honored for its extensive efforts to eliminate chemical weapons. Now, Michael Luhan is the organization's spokesman, and he joins us now via Skype from The Hague in the Netherlands. Thank you very much for joining us, Michael. 278 nominations seems like a lot to go through. How does the committee get it down to a short list, and then what are the criteria for the winner?
Well, I can't speak for the internal procedures of the Nobel Committee. As you know, they keep developments very close to the vest. What I can say in our case is that, last year I got a few calls the day before the announcement was made saying that, oh, we're rumored to be a top candidate. What could we say about that? We didn't know anything about it. And we didn't know anything until the moment it was announced. We had about an hour's advance notice when the Nobel Committee sent us their decision by fax. But otherwise, it's a process that apparently can go right down to the wire, which I think was our case last year.
What was the impact of receiving the Nobel Peace Prize? How did it impact your work and the recognition of the organization?
Well, it's been called the most prestigious prize in the world, and with the OPCW, the impact was absolutely massive. Because we were a very little-known organization outside the rather small and exclusive world of disarmament and nonproliferation. Within that world, we were very well known and very highly regarded, and regarded as perhaps the most successful arms control treaty organization. But we had always labored in obscurity, and then suddenly we find ourselves thrust into the bright glare of the Nobel Peace Prize and all the media coverage that came with that. And I mean, the day of the announcement, it was almost flotational. I mean, people here were just amazed that we would be endowed with such a prize and such an honor. And it came at a very good time, a very decisive moment in the development of our mission to eliminate Syria's chemical weapons program, and endowed that mission with a very powerful moral authority.
What did it do for the conflict in Syria? Because a lot of your work also focused on eliminating chemical weapons there. Did it have an impact on the ground in that conflict?
It's difficult to sort out what the extent of the impact was of the Nobel Peace Prize compared to the impact of the mission having gotten the support of a UN Security Council resolution and so forth. But certainly it provided us a tremendous source of inspiration, and something that we felt that we had to live up to. We didn't want to receive the prize and then not deliver with its historic mission to eliminate Syria's chemical weapons program. That was a very challenging mission. It was a very high-risk mission. It was something that we had never been called upon to do before. We had to ask our inspectors to work under extremely dangerous circumstances, together with colleagues from the United Nations. But we pulled it off, and certainly we can attribute a great deal of inspiration to having gone into that mission with the Nobel Peace Prize.
So as an organization that previously won, is now a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, do you have any favorites for this year's prize? And what advice would you have for any organization that does win the Peace Prize?
Just be prepared for intensive media scrutiny. About an hour last year before the prize was announced, I have 4 telephones on my desk, and all 4 phones began ringing and never stopped ringing for the entire day. It was like a growling monster. So the media coverage can be overwhelming. Beyond that, the Peace Prize is no stranger to criticism and controversy. precisely because it is so prestigious, there's always going to be criticism and disappointment that somebody's candidate didn't get it in favor of someone else's candidate.
Sure.
In our case, it was, I think, a welcome reminder of what the Nobel Peace Prize was originally about. Alfred Nobel was very committed to arms control and disarmament. He thought it was an essential precursor to peace.
Exactly.
And our selection last year was a helpful reminder of that.
Well, thank you very much for giving us some insight into what happens not only before but after you win the Nobel Peace Prize. Thank you very much, Michael Lujan there in The Hague, Netherlands.